Hello, I'm Grandmaster Ben Finegold, etc. Today, in the over 1400 and/or 1400 class, we're gonna talk about two bishops. Now, the two bishops work well together for obvious reasons. One does the white squares, one does the black squares. And in Bughouse, 3 bishops and 4 bishops. I think I had 4 bishops yesterday on my stream. Now, in this position, it's clear to anybody that it's an easy win for both sides. Okay, so we'll finish with your favorite Fisher game, but first we'll start with the women's. Okay, now even though black didn't win, her name was Win. That's because you the man. When Jennifer Yu won the World Girls Youth under 14 or 12, I forgot, I think 14, I said you the man, right? Because she crushed everybody. Black, obviously, and frankly...
Did you start your screen recorder?
Yeah. Obviously and frankly, just played bishop takes knight on c3, and white took with the bishop. Now, in the examples today, we will look at 2 bishops versus 2 knights, and more commonly, 2 bishops against bishop and knight. Here, with the position sort of blocked, you would figure the knights are okay, but as the game continues, the position isn't blocked, then the truth hurts. 2 bishops in general is much better than 2 knights. The 2 knights need some other advantages like pawn structure and blockade and bad bishops and cheating, but we don't have any of that. Okay, and this game was actually played a few months ago. Rook e8, castles, and nothing happens. You all saw the Blair Witch Project, okay. G4, rawr, recommended by which one of my students?
Matt Larson.
Matt Larson, very good. Okay, attack, gaining space. Now, I get this a lot from my students, because my students are good. They're like, oh, excuse me, isn't white weakening his king? Okay, and the answer is fries. White's king is weaker than it was, but is there like a queen and bishop going to be lined up here? As the Germans would say,
No.
Ish don't think so. Yeah. Okay, and white's just gaining space on the king's side because the center is blocked. Is the center going to open up? Is black going to play e5? No. Okay, knight c4, queen e2, knight e4, here come the knights. Bishop e1, double exclam. And obviously the bishop here was terrible as per Lisa Simpson. Okay, good. No? A blockaded bishop is of little value. I'm quoting Lisa Simpson.
Nice.
And now we're attacking this a lot. Kicking it out. Never play f3, which opens up this diagonal for the bishop and defends the e4 square. And okay, black cracks. And we got the bishop really good here. This bishop is good here. The c file is going to be white's. What are the knights doing? Getting attacked. How do you defend the knight on d6? Good answer. Where are you going to move the knight? Ugh.
Retreat like a Frenchman.
Blah. Right. And then bishop b5 is annoying. Damn. Man. Harsh over here. So she plays e5 because they're tricky. Okay. And then she's like, there's no tricky. And then, yeah, terrible. Bishop takes e4, confusing the audience. Because this is attacking this. So the bishops rule the day. The knights are terrible. They can't do anything. The tactics all work. And this is the one thing I wanted to talk about today, because we're going to see it in almost every game, is one of the issues you have when your opponent has the 2 bishops is often they will trade one of their bishops when you don't suspect it, getting some other advantage. And that's what happened here, is my bishop's better than your knight, and my rook is better than your rook, and I have a passed d-pawn. I did that by trading the pieces, my bishop for your knight. I ended up getting a passed pawn. Now, and we're going to see this obviously in the Fisher-Finegold game, which you've all memorized. Now, I'm a big proponent, this isn't related to the lecture, but I like stories. If you talk to Rufus and Doofus, they will tell you a queen and knight is better than a queen and bishop because they read it somewhere. They're like, oh yeah, I saw that in a book. Okay? If you talk to me or any other grandmaster, a queen and bishop is better than a queen and knight. And weaker players don't know that because when they were 7, they read in some book somewhere a queen and knight's better. Now, one of the reasons a queen and bishop is better than a queen and knight is most grandmasters will agree in a random endgame, having no other information, a bishop's better than a knight. If I have a bishop and 6 pawns, you have a knight and 6 pawns, and nothing's going on, and it's symmetrical, I'll take the bishop. So obviously, if I have a queen and bishop and you have a queen and knight, and a bishop's better than a knight, then trading queens means the person with the queen and bishop always has that threat. So here, that's what white did, trading his bishop for the knight and or her bishop for the knight, especially or. Then we get the C file, the passed D pawn, and this knight still isn't any good. Okay, rook C7. The knight finally gets good, but at what cost? The answer is a pawn. And now the answer is 2 pawns. Yeah. And white says, I have lots of passed pawns, let's queen them. Yeah, and the problem with taking this pawn is now you see how good that knight is. It's good for getting captured. Bishop D6 and take the knight. So she can't leave the back row. And the truth hurts. Okay, and now you guys are all noobs, especially Archer. And so, which makes sense because he's the youngest. And so, when you were learning chess, you were told pawns were worth 1. Yeah. So like if you're up a pawn, then you're +1. But there's different kinds of pawns. Here, white's up 2 pawns. And this pawn's hanging. So if you don't know how to play chess, white's up like, I don't know, 1.3. Because white's up 2 pawns and one of them's hanging. But if you do know chess, then the truth hurts. Okay? So they're completely winning because too many pawns. It's pandemonium. 3 passed pawns for white, 0 for black. Now Jennifer made that look easy, okay? And even though her opponent's name was Win, she lost. Okay, now we have Anand Aronian. And now I want to give like a commercial message here. When I teach chess, I would prefer to show Anand Aronian because those guys are good. And then like, look, that's good. And you're like, that's good. Problem is, if I teach you something like in the previous lecture, back rank mate, or this lecture, the 2 bishops, that insinuates, sort of, that player A, who I'm showing, won the game, understands my lecture, and player B is confused. Well, if players A and B both understand what I'm talking about, back rank mate, 2 bishops, passed pawns, anything, then they wouldn't allow their opponent to do these winning ideas. And if that happens, how can I show you stuff? If stuff happens where one side's playing well and the other side's not playing well, probably they're not both super grandmasters. Probably it's Morphy versus amateur. Morphy plays well, amateur plays badly, and we nod our heads in approval. So when I show you Anand Aronian, and I'm like, look, Anand understands and Aronian doesn't. I mean, that's not really true, but Aronian hoped that what was good about what I teach wasn't as good as it was when it happened. And unfortunately for him, it didn't work out. So here, this is a very good example of Anand listening to my lecture. Here, you're confused because nobody has the 2 bishops. They both do. However, you may have noticed, probably not, white's up a pawn. Okay, and that's because black sacrificed a pawn. Obviously, it's some kind of faux Marshall Gambit kind of thing. Looks like a Marshall Gambit, sort of. Okay, and black's bishops are pretty impressive, and Anand has the Lisa Simpson's bishop. It's blockaded. Okay, it's blocking the rook, it's blocked by these pawns, etc., mainly, etc. Now, Anand's like, I have an idea. Ben's going to lecture on the 2 bishops. I don't need that extra pawn, so let's get the 2 bishops. So he played.
95.
95. Oh, it's black white h6. Okay. 95. And then after giving the pawn back, white has the 2 bishops for nothing. And you might say, well, that looks pretty boring. It does look pretty boring, except white has 2 bishops. And you can't say, yeah, but here's black's compensation. Nope. There's no baiting attack because the queens are gone. The bishop's no longer blockaded. In fact, those bishops look pretty good. You with some crazy comment.
Why did he go for the endgame right here? Could he have kept the queens on?
Who's he?
I guess white took, right? White could have moved the queen away.
He could have, but then I think black does have an attack with the bishop on b7. I could put queen on c6 or g6 and start attacking the white king. I think that's black's only hope, is I'll attack the white king because my bishop on b7 is pretty reasonable. I don't think white's worried about that now. Now, white just has the 2 bishops. Okay, so he attacked the knight. c4, which is explosive. Blocking his bishop. Problem is, if you take that, I don't like black's pawn structure. Okay, if you go here, I also don't like black's pawn structure because I could play c5 and bishop c4, bishop. I don't like that either. I don't like c6 either because it weakens the bishop on b7. Yeah. Don't like that either. a4. Okay, now I don't know what to do. Luckily, I'm not playing the game, so it doesn't matter to me. But yeah, I don't like black at all. I mean, that bishop on e3 is a monster. And as I've said this before in every lecture I've ever given, when one side has the 2 bishops, the other side has a bishop and a knight, the previous example was 2 knights, that means they have the bishop of the same color, in this case green, and white has a red bishop. Okay, which is weird because Anand's from India, the other guy should have a red bishop. Okay, never mind. Okay, so my dark square bishop has no counterpart. That's going to be my bishop that's annoying black. Okay, because that bishop rules the world. Okay, he takes, I don't know what to suggest. If he goes here, he's probably going to lose his pawn. Bishop c5, for example. That was quick. Okay, and then taking either way looks terrible. Letting me take looks terrible. That's all terrible. Okay, now Aronian has a chance because we can trade everything. If we trade everything, it'll be a draw. Okay, in fact, even if I cheated a little bit, we'll trade everything. And then white has 2 bishops and black has 1 bishop. Every other piece on the board is traded, which means that black lost a knight for nothing. It's the draw. We need pawns to win or rooks or something. So if only pieces on the board were the ones highlighted in green, those are the only 5 pieces on the board, that would be a draw. So that means if black can trade the rooks and trade the pawns and give his knight away, to do that, he still draws the game. Normally, when we try to draw like this, it's because our opponent has a knight. King and knight can't beat a king. King and 2 knights can't beat a king. And if you're paying attention, and none of you are, about 4 days ago, not for you, but for you, there was the game, and you can look it up after class if you want, or tomorrow, or whenever you want, between Sergei Karyakin and Sam Sevian. And that game ended, Karyakin's crushing Sevian, and Sevian does what I just said, and got to 2 knights versus pawn. And Karyakin won with the 2 knights. He blockaded the pawn, stalemated him, and mated him with the guy queen. That's what you're supposed to do. I mean, nobody can do it, but Karyakin did it. Yeah, Karyakin. And I think Sevian blundered about 5 moves before he lost, but okay. But anyway, the point was Sevian's like, hey, I'm losing, but I can give material away and get some drawn endgame. So Aronian has that chance because there's so little material on the board. Traded queens, traded minor pieces, traded some pawns. So, okay, knight d5. So this is a good time to take the knight. As the Germans would say, ich don't think so, and 9. Right, so bishop c5, the 2 bishops. Never play f3. Where does the rook go? Good question. That's the answer. And black can't do anything. Always play bishop f1. Good job, Vichy. And this is just terrible for black because black can't do anything, mainly because of this bishop dominating the board. Okay, blocking this pawn. This pawn's under constant pressure. The two bishops means white controls all the squares, especially the e2 square. Otherwise, that would be annoying. If this was my stream, I would be sacking the exchange. My stream. Okay. And the two bishops rule the day. Still keeping his bishops. Aronian wins a pawn, but now he has his knight trapped. I don't think the bishops get trapped. I think the knight gets trapped. The truth hurts. Okay, and the end of this game, the very end, is one that I show a lot as a puzzle. Yeah, it's this position. So this position right here, I show to my students as like a puzzle, tactical puzzle. Aronian's tricky. So if you take the knight, I play rook d2 check, and rook takes b2. Then probably it's a draw. But the knight's still trapped on b2. So he takes. Once again, bishop takes, rook d2 check. Archer.
King e3.
King e3. Correct. Now I'm threatening bishop takes knight, because I said so. Okay, so he played check. King d2. Back. Now, if it was black's turn to move, which it's not, black could play knight c4 check, confusing the audience. You're like, wait, I'm confused. So I did a good job. You.
King c2.
King c2.
King c3.
Knight c4. Right. So king c3, now knight c4, no good. Right? Yeah. He saw knight c4. I can't believe it. Who would have thunk a bishop would be better than a knight? Oh, wait, I would. Yeah.
What about knight a4 here?
I take it. Pawns take diagonal.
Thanks.
That's why you won the 10-second turn. And then after check, I go here, and the truth hurts. Yeah. Okay, so that was one of the examples where one side has the two bishops, and by trading a pair of bishops, the bishop crushes the knight. In the previous example, white had two bishops against two knights. By trading the bishop for the knight, the other bishop crushed the knight. Okay, obviously, there's the famous Botvinnik-Bronstein game, I don't have to tell you guys, where Botvinnik was down a pawn in an endgame where he had two bishops, and he actually won. And he shouldn't have won. And he's the world champion because of that, and Bronstein never was. Was he bitter? Oh, yes. I have Bronstein stories, but you have to pay for those. Okay, now here's a game I played before you were born. What year were you born?
Yeah, 85.
Yeah, yes. I'm the greatest. Okay, and obviously my last move was knight takes bishop on e2, and black has the two bishops. And even though I was 14, luckily I had my driver's license. Because as you can see, I took this guy to school. Okay, so I'm black. So just in case Mike Hummer walks in, it's unlikely. Again, we have this symmetrical pawn structure, but I have the two bishops. Okay, and you can see we both have a dark bishop, but I have the white squared bishop, so I dominate the white squares. Okay, this is a funny tactical moment. I could take the knight and win two pieces for a rook, you agree, but then my bishops are lined up. So as Archer would like to say,
Unlucky.
what?
Lucky one.
Yeah, after rook e1, that could be annoying. It could be. Yeah? Yeah. So I don't want to do that. My bishops, I need my bishops.
It doesn't say never play f5 though.
That's right, exactly. Yay, my bishop on d3. Ha, my bishop. You thought you could take it, but you can't. Yeah, a3 is a really bad positional move. If you look at the dictionary on a really bad positional move, that's it. Now he can take my bishop. I think he played there, yeah. Yeah, and then we trade advantages. Now I go here, that's annoying. Yeah. So he's like, no, don't walk your king in. I have your king stopped. Ha ha! And I said, no talking. Thought he had my king stopped. Ha. And here comes my king the other way. Yes, I'm the best. Okay, and he resigned. Right, when I was 14, I had a keen positional eye. Couldn't see any tactics. Now again, I'm up a pawn. So +1. Yeah,
You're gonna have
+1.
three connected passers.
Yeah, and the longer it thinks, 2 CPUs insulting the audience. Also 4 CPUs insulting the audience.
Yeah.
How many CPUs before you're not insulted? 40?
8.
8? Oh, 8, just 8?
Yeah.
Oh, then you're not insulted? Okay. I'll try to do that next time.
See that 2771?
You've never been so
That
embarrassed?
should be at least like 8,000.
At least.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then the number goes up. So if it sits for like 3 hours, let me ask you a question. Let's say it was 30 CPUs, okay?
Yeah.
And let's say it thought for a minute. You got that?
Mhm.
How many would mine have to think where it's the same? 2 hours? If it's 4 CPUs?
Yeah, it's just proportional, right? So
I can't do the math.
15 times as long.
As long as,
Or, I'm sorry,
it's 15,
7.5 times as long. Like 4.
so it's slower. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so see, it'll get good eventually. Yeah. All right, so I'm up a pawn, but resigns. Yeah, exactly. Yay, bishops. I love bishops. Okay, this is actually the same game. This is in the World Open before you were born. Oh, 93, so you were born. Not you. You're 94?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always the year before one of you was born. So the next game's the year before you were born. What are you, 2009?
Yeah.
But you're showing Fisher Finegold?
Ooh, it's gonna be harsh. That's before I was born. Okay, now here, I played bishop e3. This is very similar to the last game, except my opponent's name is also Win. This was the last round of the World Open in 93. It says it was round 8. I remember it being the last round, and the World Open's 9 rounds. Is my memory wrong, or is the round wrong? I'm gonna say the round's wrong, because I gotta say something. Okay. Now again, if you were in my class, and you were, because you're still here, which one of these bishops is the important dominating one because he doesn't have it?
Dark square.
The dark squared bishop. He don't have a dark squared bishop, but I do. Yeah. Okay, so we move our king up, as I'm apt to do. And his knight's really good. That was Eddie Murphy staring to the camera. Yeah, it's a great knight. Does a lot. Yeah, good job, knight. This is my last game, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah, knight's really good.
Your king's getting to
Good,
B6.
good job, knight. Yeah, good job.
He's trying.
Wow. This bishop's pretty good too. Yay, b5. And then bishop e4 with unstoppable bishop b7. Man, now those are bishops. And then some. Yay, bishops. Good night, though. And now I played the Grandmaster move, even though I wasn't a Grandmaster. That's why I became a Grandmaster. It's the move none of you would ever play or think of, and I play in less than 1 second. So you can't play or think of it, so you can't solve it.
Oh, okay. It has to be shutting down all counterplay.
There you go.
Yeah, because that's the
Yeah.
grandmaster.
You're not as bad as you play.
Yeah, you're right.
And the move is?
So I see.
F4.
No, that doesn't shut down any counterplay.
I know.
Every move wins instantly, but this is the move the Grandmaster
You gotta
plays.
shut down the knight from going anywhere.
I should be too.
Yeah. Now, a funny winning plan, I find it funny, is this. Just because I find it funny. There's a lot of defense to that. Obviously, this is quicker. And I could also do this and then ignore his knight and get 3 bishops or 4 bishops or whatever. Yeah. So, hopefully some of these positions will make you like bishops better than knights. Normally, the weaker and more Nakamura you are, the more you like knights. Okay? But when you're a strong player, you like bishops. Now, there was a very funny commentary at the US Championship, which there always is. This actually doesn't make any sense, but okay. When you're a weak player, like you are, and you at home, you think things like, oh, Grandmaster A is playing Grandmaster B, but I've heard of Grandmaster B. He's better. So Grandmaster A, wow, if he draws, he's going to do cartwheels. Okay, that's nonsense, but you all believe that. You're like, oh, Nakamura has black against Onishuk. So if Onishuk draws, he'll be like, wow, I drew Nakamura. Okay, now any Grandmaster knows that's nonsense, especially when Onishuk is white. Okay, when Onishuk is white and Nakamura is black, and the game ends in a draw, then Nakamura is happier than Onishuk. Now, this is 2018, so that statement's a little suspicious, but in 2015, 16, 14, 13, 12, 11, that statement was not suspicious.
Because Onishuk was better.
Yeah, I mean, Onishuk was like slightly worse than Nakamura, or not, but slightly worse at the best. And he's white, and he's Onishuk, so he's not expecting to lose. Anyway, you would think in St. Louis, the people who do the commentary would think like me. But instead they were like, wow, Onishuk drew, he must be really happy. And I'm like, what? What are you, 12 years old and rated 100? But anyway, they played a game about 7 years ago in the US Championship, and Naka went a little knocky. He played a very suspicious opening with black. He had 2 knights against 2 bishops, and he was very lucky to draw. And when the game ended, Naka was explaining how he was better, and Onishuk just laughed at him. And he's like, well, he's ridiculous. Like, he doesn't think he's better, he's just insane. Like, he just said that. He doesn't actually think he's better. Obviously, I'm better at winning. Right. And that's correct. Like, he has bishops against knights, so Onishuk like couldn't believe he didn't win. Not like, you know, Nakamura's like, ooh, it's complicated and I'm better. And somehow Onishuk drew. And they're like, okay, you're Nakamura. And Onishuk just laughed at them. Okay, now somebody like you, if you drew Nakamura, you'd be like, yeah, I drew Nakamura. Onishuk's like, how did he draw me? He's getting crushed. And you can see in a lot of positions, you don't want to have a knight, because then you lose. Your knights can't move, and bishops trap them. And especially when it's 2 bishops, that's why there's a 2-bishop lecture. In all of these games, the bishops are crushing the knights and bishop and knight. Doesn't always happen, but it usually does. Okay, and last and definitely least is my dad's game with Fischer. And this is the starting position of the bishops versus the bishop and knight. And white has a big threat.
The bishop takes up.
Yeah, it's the bishop that black doesn't have, the dark squared bishop. So my dad, since he played the French defense, this is a French defense, retreated like a Frenchman. Okay. Now, what compensation does black have for these 2 bishops? Not much, but some. Doubled isolated pawns. You could argue, well, that's also isolated. Yeah, truth hurts. Okay, maybe if this was here, blacks would be like, okay, maybe. Okay, so put it in H. My dad retreated again, this is a French. Yeah. And then he's like, let's trade queens. And Fischer said, always repeat. Okay, always repeat. And here you might be confused as to why he didn't take this, but he doesn't want to lose his pawn on H6. That pawn might queen someday. In fact, it did. So yeah, pawn's getting close to queening. Okay, and then they repeated again. Okay, and Fischer played bishop E5, and he said, hey, why don't you undouble my pawns? And my dad said, no talking. Okay, and Dad's like, all right. Again, if there's nothing on the board, it'll be a draw. Okay, so let's get things off the board. Okay, and in this position, my dad played B5 and was surprised at Fischer's response. Now, of course, if black doesn't do anything, white can play king to d4 and pawn to c4 and just keep going forward. And black just does this and says, stop beating me. So he made sure that none of these pawns can move. Pretty good. None of the pawns can move. Good job. You get captured. You can trade. Okay. And as I said in every other position, yeah, and this shocked my dad. He's like, what? There's 2 bishops. Why is he trading one of them? Okay. And it turns out in the resulting endgame, this bishop's no good. That bishop's defending. Black's defending. But the knight on d6 was a great defender. It defended b5 and e4. And now it defends neither. And now we don't trade the pawns, we defend our pawn. Then we take the b5 pawn later. The only way to defend the b5 pawn is to play
A6.
a6. The only move that makes any sense is, for black, b takes c4. You can't lose your a pawn, right? Okay. And now it's black's move. Good luck. And this was a famous Zugzwang ending. He's like, move, I dare you. I double dare you. It was the first time anybody ever said, do they speak English and what? And it was in 1963. Okay. Well, the bishop on g6 defends e4, and you can't move the pawns because I'll take them. Okay, so my dad played f5. If you could move your king, and then I would play king c5. Man, then your a5 pawn's not looking good. So my dad's like, let's trade all the pawns off, or I'll go here. Either way is good. Okay, and now this is a famous position where all the chess books say, if you play the obvious move, it's a blunder. What's the obvious blunder that white can make? A move you would make at a blitz game, and then you would lose.
Bishop B1.
Bishop b1. That wins the e-pawn. Dave agrees.
I think he said I could come in.
Sure.
I was worried.
So after bishop to b1, why is that a blunder? Looks like it wins the pawn for nothing. You
E3.
play e3, a discovered attack on the bishop. And then if you take it, you don't take on f2, you play e2. And now I take en passant. So I was teaching a class in St. Louis, and the class was suspicious, very suspicious. I was teaching the rules. They knew the rules, but some of the rules are complicated. So I spent about 20 minutes teaching en passant. And one of the players raised their hand, and I've played her many times. She's played at least 1,000 games of chess. And she knew en passant. And she said, now, let's say I have a pawn on b6, and my opponent has a pawn on, let's say, a7, and plays a5. Can I take it en passant, like that? And I said, no. And she said, but I want to. I want to take it en passant, so let's make that a rule. Now, this is funny because one of our local masters, Demir Studin, who doesn't know the rules of chess, yet teaches somehow. In fact, that's all he does, but doesn't know the rules. He was explaining to me how his opponent claimed a 3-time repetition, but that it wasn't. And he sent me the score, and I said, yep, that's a 3-time repetition. And he said, no, but the positions in the middle are different. And I said, that doesn't matter. And he said, it doesn't matter. He says, look, I agree with you, you're a director and a grandmaster, but it should matter, they should change the rule. That reminded me of when she said, I want to take en passant, so they should change the rule. He said it was stupid that the positions in the middle don't matter. So he agreed that he was wrong about the rule, but they should change the rule so that he's right. Then he also was mad about something else. He said, if I have a king and a knight, and you have a king and a pawn, in a slow game, and the flag falls, the result of the game depends on the rules you're using. In USCF, it's one result. In FIDE, it's another. And I was like, yep.
The side with the knight's flag falls.
Correct. No, the side with the pawn.
Oh.
Yeah. No, the side with the knight falls, you lose. The pawn can beat a knight. That's easy. Pawn promotes to a queen. Yeah. So in USCF rules, if you have a pawn and I have a knight and your flag falls, it's a draw. In FIDE, you lose. Because I can legally win. Legally. USCF says you can't mate with a knight, assuming I have nothing, so it's a draw. FIDE says you can mate with the knight against the pawn, so you win. Okay? And he said, that's dumb. And he said, because they should be the same rule. And I was like, yeah. Then his opinion was different than mine. His opinion was it should be a draw, and I think it should be a win. You can legally win, flag falls. Okay. Anyway, I had a situation against Grandmaster Eugene Perelstein. I had a king and 4 pawns. He had a king and 4 pawns, and it was locked. You could not legally win. And we agreed to a draw and laughed. Because I'm the one who locked it up. I played f4 and couldn't legally win. Then he looked at me and we laughed. And I pointed out if one of our flags had fallen, in USCF it's one result, in FIDE it's another. You can't legally win. In USCF you win because you have mating material. You have pawns. In FIDE you can't win because you can't win. You can't legally win. Now I've been to some scholastic tournaments, so you can win, just not legally. If you make an illegal move in a scholastic tournament, or not a scholastic tournament, your opponent doesn't say anything, and you keep playing. So I can move my king into check, my opponent says nothing, I take their pawns and I win. So I could win, but not legally, not with legal moves. Okay. So instead of bishop b1, Fischer decided not to lose and played bishop b3. And black doesn't have a lot of moves. Very few moves. If he moves the bishop away from the e pawn, I take it. The h pawn can't legally move. The a pawn doesn't want to move. And if you move the king, I play king e5. If you move the c pawn, I take it and play bishop d5 and take that. So what's the only move I didn't say?
Resigns.
No, that's not a move.
Bishop g6.
Bishop g6. And Fischer went here. And bishop f5.
Now, this is your dad, huh?
It is.
Man.
Yeah. And now Fischer played here and said, you can't play bishop g6. And my dad said, no talking. Yeah. Man, so what? Black's in Zugzwang again. And my dad said, I know what I'll do. I'll attack the bishop. He'll move it away. And I'll go back to d6. Right? Also, I don't know what else Black's going to do. Man, harsh. Okay, and Fischer didn't move his bishop. Man, the audience is confused.
The king lurched into e5.
Yeah, that king and pawn ending is not good. After king takes e8, king takes f5. Now here's what's funny about this. It's a 2 bishops lecture. White had the 2 bishops. Gave it away for the knight to get the winning bishop ending, then traded the bishops for the winning king and pawn ending. Why is it winning? Well, when the white king's on f5 and the black king is on e8, and the truth hurts. Okay, so my dad moved his bishop. And Fischer played one of the favorite tactics of low-rated players like yourselves.
I got it.
Bishop g6.
You agree?
Archer's so clever.
He is.
Right?
Bishop
He's genius
g6.
in chess.
Yeah. It's funny because in the previous trap, black was queening the e pawn, and now white's going to queen the h pawn. Obviously, my dad didn't take the bishop. But these pawns that you can attack, you can't legally attack with the bishop. The one you can legally attack with the bishop, that's defended. Unfortunately, my dad's pawns are all in white squares. So he lost all of them. Okay. And then he resigned.
Ben, let me ask you another question about how you took note that those pawns are on dark squares, and that white square bishop for black is totally ineffective.
Yep.
Now, you know, a lot of times in games, they're like, say you'll be in the end game and each side have 2 or 3 pieces, and one side has a bishop, right? And let's say it's a light squared bishop, for instance, and then I arrange all my pieces to black. Everybody that can go to black.
Yep.
That's sort of like an edge, isn't it, in a lot of kinds of ways?
Yeah, and in fact, one of the worst blunders I've ever made, and I made a lot, so that's saying something. There's a guy in St. Louis who always beats me, except the game that I beat him. And he's not always winning, he just always wins. I'm winning and then he wins. Or I'm losing and he wins. One game I beat him nicely. His name is Krishnan Priyadarshan. You agree, right?
Yeah, that's
You're like, what?
100%.
Okay. And Priyadarshan, I was playing him in a game, and he had a rook and a bishop, and I had a rook and a knight, and I was winning. And I had a minute, and he had 7 seconds. And I was winning. And I moved my rook and my king to the same color as his bishop. And he forked them.
Yeah.
And I was like, why am I putting my piece on the color of his bishop when I teach not to do that? And I still did it.
And like, I've found that a lot of times it's like an instinct with me. I'll just all of a sudden, when I get them to have that bishop of a particular color, and most of the time it'll be a white square bishop for white, and I'll be black and I'll be on the...
Put everything on the black
and my
squares.
pieces that just all just go to the dark squares.
Yep.
Except for if there's a pawn or something that can't.
Yeah.
Right.
What's funny is if you have a pawn chain where they're linked, you often want them the same color as their bishops. Their bishop can't move. But when you have 700 isolated pawns, as in this game, that ain't going to stop the bishop. They just get attacked. And so the winning idea that Fischer played earlier was he fixed this pawn on h7. And much earlier in the endgame, he played h5, h6. In this position, his pawn was on h4 when we started. And Fischer realized if my pawn gets here, that's advantageous for white, because that pawn can't move. If I capture it, I'm going to queen. If he captures my pawn, that's going to be really unlikely, because I have a dark squared bishop and he doesn't. So Fischer started with the h5, h6 here.
But now, as far, you know, the secrets of the grandmasters, the secrets of chess that you guys, the grandmasters, don't want
It's a secret.
we, the amateurs, to know. Right? I refer to it as the lost tapes of Nimzovich, to where the true story of chess and how you played is really told, but it was lost. And you guys, this pushing your rook pawn is one of your secrets. I know that.
I've done that many times, and one of my best memories of doing that, the World Open, I think the one I tied for first in, I was black, and I pushed my pawn to a3, the mirror image, and then I sacked my queen for a knight on b3. He played a takes b3, and I played a2, and I played a1. That was piece up. Yeah, when your pawn's on the 6th rank, like Fischer's is, it's pretty close to the 8th rank. So h5, h6 makes perfect sense.
The thing is, you would have told everybody, don't do this though. Don't push your rook pawn, but then all of a sudden, like magic, you do. You know,
That's why magic is the greatest. And Larry Bird.
Guys, I'm giving you, I'm exposing some of his secrets to you right now. Another one is, now, and Ben has done this to me many times, right? You know, I'm telling you, it's devious. The Grandmaster's mind is devious. He'll give up his bishops to leave me with, so he can have his knight, and then all of a sudden he'll just freeze the position on you, and his knight will run rampant through your position.
That's a different lecture.
Yeah, that's the position.
See, and that's the tactic the Grandmaster uses. He tells you how great the two bishops are, but then when you're playing him, he gets the knight on you and goes
See,
whack,
and actually,
whack, whack.
this is correct. This is why chess is difficult, because everything you learn in chess, with no exception, is there's exceptions. So if I tell you don't lose your queen, you keep losing your queen. And you're like, man, he's right, I lose my queen every game. That's why he loses. And then he shows me again, I'm like, why didn't you sack your queen and mate the guy?
Right,
and you're like, I never give my queen away, you told me not to. And I'm like, well, you could have mated him there.
Takes f8, rook takes f8.
And then you're like, right. There's always the exceptions. So when I do give my opponents the bishops, they're not expecting it. Just like in these endings we just looked at today, when white or black had the two bishops, they would trade for the knight to get some other advantages, and their opponent was like, wait, why did he give us two bishops? Now we see why. The passed h-pawn, the better king, the weak pawns, also the etc. Yeah. And somehow, one of those guys became world champion. If only my dad had had white.
You know, Bobby Fischer was great with his bishops.
Yeah.
Right? Bishop endings and stuff like that.
Boris Spassky gave a lecture at the 85 US Open in Hollywood, Florida, and he said, Fischer liked his white squared bishop more than his dark squared bishop, and we all looked confused.
Bishop on b3.
We were confused. We were like, all right, whatever you say, Boris. Boris was really funny. He was making jokes, imitating other people. He was like imitating other grandmasters with their voices like I do. And I was like, I didn't think Spassky would be doing that.
Right.
Yeah, he showed me. I mean, he's met all the grandmasters. He can make fun of all of them. So, all right, I hope you enjoyed the two bishops. And remember, if you're the two bishops against me, I'll still, well, something. But yeah, Onishuk, he loves his two bishops. Onishuk, he's old school. All right, good job. You guys did. You guys are the best.
All right.
Especially Archer.